person. I love that Ben Affleck, Casey Affleck ad last night. It was about 7 minutes. No thanks on the Starbucks. Dunkin', what'd I say? No, Dunkin' coffee. Well, Well, hold on, J-Dog. Do you know where the first Dunkin' Donuts was ever? No, Quincy, Massachusetts. I remember when I was in television, I interviewed the family of the kids of the family Dunkin'. But I love the Casey. I'm not a big Starbucks. Hey, good morning. Good morning, New Hampshire. Good morning, Maine. Good morning, New England. Good morning, worldwide. The pulse of NH, any smart device. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, download the app, or, of course, pretty much any way you want to get us. The pulse of NH. And our poll question on X already out of the gate this morning. And that's at the Pulse of NH on X. The poll question: do you support President Trump's idea of placing a 25% tariff on foreign steel? Do you support the tariff on foreign steel coming into the U.S.? Yes or no? That'll be a discussion with our economist at 9:50, Doug Tengden. Hey, I hope you had a good weekend. J-Dog, I don't know if anyone saw a Philadelphia Eagles blowout. It's kind of like the national polls on November 5th. Everyone thought it'd be a closer game or gave the edge to the Chiefs. But what was going on with that Eagles defense? I think they got to Mahomes more than anyone's gotten to him in 3-4 years. Yeah, and J-Dog, it was interesting because it's just buddies and, friends watching it. And of course, it's ironic Tom Brady calling the game, right? Or, doing the play, the analysis, J-Dog, is people forget that halftime Patriots against the Atlanta Falcons, I think it was almost about the same amount of a lead, 20. Yeah, they had a 25-point lead. So yesterday, the Eagles going to halftime with 24 points. And I won't even, by the way, I guess Chris Stapleton wasn't available for the halftime show. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, here's my point. I said, if anyone can turn this around, it's the Chiefs and Mahomes. It could be a whole different game in the second quarter if they come out of the gate and score 10 quick points. All of a sudden, this is a game. Didn't happen, J-Dog. And you know what's interesting? Just because I was into it and watched the whole thing, as I said, I commented on the Duncan ad, but J-Dog, the Chiefs figured out a way to shut down Saquon Barkley for the most part. He didn't have any really huge runs, and they still. I don't know what was going on. The front four of the Eagles was on. They were just through that line and on Mahomes the whole game. He probably said, "Who are those guys?" I mean, it was one point Brady said, "Look at Patrick's feet. Look at his feet. He's not comfortable. He doesn't know when he's going to get hit next." They really, but you know what, J-Dog, good for the Eagles. Good for Philadelphia. It was fun. Good for CJ. He'll be with us, I'm sure. He's probably still sleeping with a little smile on his face, our big Eagles fan. But our Bet This podcast each week, J-Dog and CJ will get a live update. I appreciate it. All right, fun stuff. All right, let's dive into some of the big news. I mentioned those steel tariff proposal. Trump basically said on Air Force One on the way to the big game with his entourage yesterday in New Orleans. But it's interesting. One of the stories that I think comes out of the weekend, and I'm going to say some commentary early about what President Trump is doing on a lot of these tariffs. Yes, he talked about it. Yes, a poll over the weekend shows I think more than 70% of people polled feel that Trump is delivering on his promises. He's doing what he said. The only thing I would say, if I was the fly on the wall, and I don't think President Trump doesn't listen to all the people around him as intently as some people or former presidents did, or whoever was running the Biden White House. But one of the things I think President Trump has to be very cognizant of is one thing that people really voted for him and felt he could do is to improve this economy. And even if he believes these tariffs are going to make America great, restore American jobs again, make people build things here, make things here with steel, you name it, he's got to be very sensitive and aware of consumer prices. Consumer prices, the price of chicken. I won't get into eggs because of the bird flu, but you know what I'm saying. The price of everything. He's got to be very sensitive. Consumer prices. A lot of people, after 4 years of being pounded, going into the 5th year now. They want lower prices, everything from the pump to groceries, and they need it. Energy. So you talked about that. You can't, these tariffs can have an adverse effect on some prices. For example, if Canada reacts with the steel stuff and they raise a tariff on wood, or stuff, all of a sudden, Canadian stuff, all of a sudden your home building costs, your construction costs can go up. And you know what happens when that happens? That's passed on to you, the consumer, if you're buying or building a new home. So we just got to be, my opinion, cognizant of that. Now, speaking of economics, wow. 603-228-2080. Wow. Elon Musk, deputized by President Trump to shred and go through these federal agencies. Oh my goodness. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and a few others, or a lot of others, is absolutely losing their minds, going nuts. Who is this billionaire? Like, you didn't know who Elon Musk was. Give me a break. You used to love him when he made electric vehicles cool. You didn't like him when he started to tangle with you, Senator Warren. He's not a liberal, but that's okay. Who is this person? He's not elected. He shouldn't have access to these federal agencies and our taxpayer dollars and what we're spending money on. Who is this guy? Well, guess what? He's going to go through Department of Education on spending. He's going to go through the Department of Defense, and Hegseth, the defense secretary, is welcoming it. You look at the size of these agencies and the spending, and we have a $35 trillion with a T dollar debt, and you're telling me we can't cut waste in Washington? You may not like it that Musk wasn't elected, but it's happening. And you know what? It's exactly what Washington needs. This is another hill you don't want to die on, Senator Warren. You know what? You thought you could deny and basically lie or BS most people that there was no crisis at the southwest border, no problem with illegal migrants committing crimes in sanctuary cities. You lost on that one. Democrats, including Massachusetts, are now changing the page on that. Can't die on that hill. You try to tell everyone that all Republicans want to take away a woman's right to an abortion. That one ain't working either anymore. Look at New Hampshire between Kelly Ayotte and Joyce Craig. Every other ad was, she's going to take away your right to an abortion. No. There's no abortion restrictions in New Hampshire through the first 6 months. That's the law. But anyway, and then the other one is, boys, young males should be able to play in women's sports. Nope, that ain't happening either. That's not a hill to die on. Now you're going after Musk because you should be embracing, the smart thing for Democrats, but I'm not James Carville. You should be embracing what Musk is doing. You should be saying we have a $35 trillion debt. We need to save Medicare, save Medicaid, save Social Security. What would work with people is if you said, I like what he's doing. I just think we need more cooperation with Congress. Then people would say, okay, she's making a good point here. But just railing against Musk, calling him names, the Hitler references, all this stuff about Elon Musk, guess what? He is going to eat your lunch, because what people are going to say after a year or two is, look at all this money that was being wasted in the federal government. And guess what? 80% of the people, common sense, are going to think it's a good thing. So interesting watching the reaction against Elon Musk. Couple programming notes today. We have a new segment we're going to be starting. I mentioned this to J-Dog about an hour from now on Mondays. And, this is a fun one because I don't know if you know this, but the Joe Rogan's podcast on Spotify used to be like the number one ranked. More people were downloading and listening to Rogan. And he has obviously a great podcast. He's like, the Tom Brady of this stuff in terms of what he's paid. But faith-driven stuff, there's a podcast on faith and some religious stuff are now taking over that top spot. That's not the only reason why I'm doing this, but I met a friend years ago. I call him Pastor Charlie. Pastor Charlie has his own church, and it's in Westchester County, New York. Calvary Chapel, westchester.org is the website, Calvary Chapel. But I met Charlie on supporting some veterans and advocating for veterans and some faith stuff. And he's done a lot to help people, but he's got a different way of coming at this. So at 10:20, we're going to gonna start our own new little segment, what's faith all about? Just, me being the person who could use more of it, him being the formal pastor, but we're gonna have a conversational, fun discussion on, little things like I had to laugh or chuckle when is it, you gotta help me out, J-Dog, with all these new dynamic quarterbacks in the National Football League. Washington Commanders, it Jaden Daniels, is that his name? Jaden? He had some great games this season, as you know, went deep into the playoffs, and I had to chuckle on one of the games when he threw that 65-yard bomb, and it was caught, and the Commanders won, and they knocked off some big teams, just ask Detroit. The Bears, yeah, and the national broadcasters asked him after the game, "What do you attribute that to? Was it your receiver, your front line?" He goes, "God, Jesus Christ, my God, Jesus Christ." And the announcer says, "No, no, no, you didn't what do you attribute that incredible Hail Mary pass to?" He goes, "Christ, my God." And the announcer didn't wanna take it as an answer, and he goes, "I just prayed that, someone caught it, and my prayers were answered." But even that causes a debate. Why? So at 10:20, we're gonna have fun with that. Also gonna introduce you to a young person again from the Lakes region. I just remember Wyatt. He's coming into our studio. He's got a great story of inspiration as well. Doug Tengton on the tariff stuff, consumer prices. We got a packed show for you, as J Dog said. More bet this, and of course, CJ. He's all in on the Eagles. He probably has a tattoo already from last night. Hey Google, he walks by the pulse of an inch. Back in a few. All right, welcome back. We have a $35 trillion debt in the United States of America. And it's interesting, the Democrats want to rail against Elon Musk. Who is this civilian who no one voted for, shredding through these agencies and looking at our taxpayer dollars and how they're being spent? You know who he is. He made electric vehicles cool, and he's a really smart person. You just don't like him now. But you know what? This debt is real. And if you really care about Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security, you should applaud this haircutting of federal waste. You should come at it differently. If you have a plan to cut waste and you don't like the fact that Elon Musk is the point person of the president doing it, then come up with your own way of doing it. But fighting people on federal waste and going after Elon Musk is going to backfire. Just like you said, there were no problem with sanctuary cities, backfired. This is what's needed. And people with common sense see that. They see that. So I'm just sort of chuckling. James Carville, the former, big thinker Democrat. He's a character speaking in New Orleans. That's where he lives and he's from. I've met him several times over the years. Of course, Bill Clinton's architect, if you will, of his 2 terms, James Carville, big thinker. I like him because he's got that, you know, he's married to Mary Matlin, but Republican, but he's got that, you know, uh, big easy way of telling you what he thinks with some swear words in there. I mean, I just think he's obviously pretty bright, but he even says it now. Like, what are the Democrats thinking? Chuck Schumer, Senator Warren, what are you thinking these days? If you want to kind of recharge your base, you're going after you're doing it, and maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe I shouldn't put any good ideas in their heads. They're missing the point. They're missing the point of why Trump won on November 5th, why all the polls were wrong. They're missing the point. And the point is people want change. They want change in Washington. They don't like how Washington was running. And I really do sometimes laugh to myself, which is, I guess, easy to do or easier than ever before. That song by Oliver Anthony, Richmond, North of Richmond. I don't think Senator Schumer or Elizabeth Warren realize just how much the average person with common sense and 3/4 of a brain dislike Washington. They don't like all these people in Washington who become really rich off alleged public service. And they're the ones resisting cutting federal waste the most. And they do it in a weird way. They're going after Elon Musk versus the point of eliminating federal waste. If you like Medicaid, if you like Medicare, and you like Social Security, you should want to save it. We have a $35 trillion debt in this country. That stuff ain't going to be there if we don't cut this debt. So you don't know it, but in a year from now, more people are going to applaud how much money Trump, Musk, however it's done, have cut out of the federal government. People are cheering. You don't realize it. Pick a different mountain or hill to die on, but it ain't this one. And I'm just looking at this going, wow. I mean, the same people who were fighting Trump the most after he won on November 5th, the same people who fought him the most, fought him the loudest, fought him the hardest. He's not going to take any of our migrants, illegal migrants, even if they've committed crime, from our sanctuary cities. We're going to fight Trump. Well, that has changed dramatically. Now they're embracing, even in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, the Democrats who railed against us a year ago or months ago now are embracing cracking down on illegal migrants who've committed 20 major felonies and have been allowed to roam free in cities like Boston, L.A., Colorado, Denver, New York City. L.A., you're next, by the way, from what I'm hearing. So, well, that was sort of leaked out. Probably shouldn't leak that stuff out, but ICE could spend a month or two in L.A. Wow. But they changed on that one because most people realized we do have a crisis with people just pouring into this country. Is it 10 million? Is it 15, 20 million? How many people came into this country illegally? How many people? So now, you wanted to fight, even in New Hampshire, that boys should be allowed to play in girls soccer and volleyball and sports, even though parents would show up at games and say, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right to me. You wanted to fight that one. And now I think 80% of the people don't agree with what you believed. You wanted to now you want to fight Elon Musk. You don't think Musk is having a blast doing this? He loves it when Elizabeth Warren goes after him. He probably sits there and laughs his head off. But the point is not Elon Musk. They're missing the point. They're missing the point. The point isn't Musk. The point isn't that he's heading some agency that we've never seen before, or that he hasn't been elected the office. People think politicians are the problem. This is the funny thing people don't get when it comes to Musk. They this is really I was thinking about this. I was actually giving this over the weekend preparing for my show this morning. I was giving this serious thought, not just watching the Eagles blow out the Chiefs, but I was thinking about this. Elizabeth Warren, Schumer, they can't stand Elon Musk because he wasn't elected to go in and start questioning how we're wasting federal tax dollars. Don't you get it? It is elected officials in Washington that people have had enough of. You should have been cutting this stuff, Senator Warren. If you care about Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, you should have been leading the charge. The fact that Elon Musk wasn't elected is people don't care about that. They've had enough of elected incumbent members of Congress who've been, we have a $35 trillion debt. If you want to do something about it, cut it, be more efficient. But fighting Elon Musk because he wasn't elected, that's why people kind of like it. He's a business person going in, doing what you create. He's trying to fix the problem, the crisis that you created. And I just laugh that you think that because he wasn't elected is the reason to do it. No, people don't care about that. You care because you don't want anything to change in Washington. You like it just the way it was and is, and people don't. And I'm sorry, it's just the reality. It's gravity. I learned a long time ago, you cannot fight gravity. What I mean by gravity, it's that pull. It's like you can't get between a grandparent and a grandkid. Oh my goodness. It's like disproportionate love when a grandparent has a grandkid, even though they might have had kids. It's a whole, you can't fight. I say to friends, don't even get in the way of that gravity. It's like standing under a waterfall with an umbrella. You can't fight that. And you know what? People want change. Trump is delivering on a lot of it. My only criticism right now of Donald Trump, believe it or not, is you got to keep your eye on the ball on consumer prices. We're going to come back with some guests on this because one thing people voted for you on, a lot of people, independents, is they really believed you would do a better job lowering consumer prices. They thought you would start to do this, and you better do it. Even though this wasteful spending being cut is a very good step. The separate path is the price of, steak and groceries and food and energy. Lower that, because these tariffs, the only thing I worry about is every time you levy a tariff and someone does something back, it might take a couple years before you create more jobs in America, make more stuff here. You can't spike consumer prices going into the midterms because 8 out of 10 people saying what you said you were going to lower prices. So that's one thing I would be cognizant of. Some commentary. Our poll question on X, we make it easy for you. YouTube channel, you can watch the first hour streaming. If you want our own TV channel on YouTube, The Pulse of an H. Our poll question on X, The Pulse of an H. Do you support the tariff, 25% tariff on steel that President Trump is proposing? Yes or no? Do you support the steel tariff? Yes or no? At The Pulse of an H. Our app, The Pulse of an H, weather broken down, local stories, regionalized, national. It's a great, great app. Listen anywhere around the world. Tens of thousands of you are each week and month. Each morning, The Pulse of an H. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an H. See where I'm going here? It's half of us, most of us, including me, can't remember all our passwords for like your email, your home security, your you name it, your Arlo or whatever. You can't remember passwords, but we make it easy for you. There's only one here, The Pulse of an H. Go to The Pulse of an H, Pulse of an H. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play The Pulse of an H. pulseofanh.com, our website for the cowboy trip this fall. And our new podcast, Pulse, the Pulse Podcast Network, The Pulse of an H. One-stop shopping, The Pulse of an H. We'll come back and talk about USAID and who's upset the most. Michael Graham on deck. And a little bit later on, Doug Tengden, our own economist, world market advisors on the tariffs and consumer prices. Back in a moment. Before we bring in our next guest, just quickly, I want to finish a point on my last segment, which might flow into this one. And Brad Carden, yours truly, our new podcast, which trended pretty well going to the weekend on Contact Politics. It's called. We had Jim Messina, who was Barack Obama's and is still sort of his top guy, and he was even saying it that his own party, the Democrats, better understand that people the people that Joe Biden called garbage before the election were going to vote for Trump. Hillary Clinton tried it, deplorables. Biden said it. Kamala Harris ran. Her whole campaign was Trump is not electable. He's nuts. He says crazy things at rallies. He's a threat. How did that work? How did that work for Kamala Harris? What I'm trying to say is Trump and Musk together are two entrepreneurs. What are they? They're two business people. And Washington can't stand it. So if you're going to rail against Trump, if you're Elizabeth Warren or Democrat, and trash Elon Musk, trash Trump, you didn't learn anything at all about November 5th. Get over your hatred for Trump if you don't like him. Get over it and get on to some new issues that the customers care about. Because if you want to die on the hill of telling people it's okay for boys to play in girls' sports, if you want to die on the hill trying to scare everyone that Republicans are going to take away a woman's right to choose, if you want to scare everyone that sanctuary cities are good and cool, and if you want to defend waste in federal government, you're on the wrong side of the customers. Don't waste your energy blasting Trump and Musk because Musk isn't elected. Who is this person? You know who he is. You know who he is. He's not new to the scene. He's new to Washington. He's the biggest threat you've ever seen. So be smarter about it. But bad mouthing him, calling him a Nazi, you don't think that most people out there look at you as nuts? Some commentary 603 228 2080. Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal on a Monday. USAID. That's another area that Trump and Musk are tearing into and putting basically all but 300 of the employees on administrative leave. Good morning, Michael. I believe we have Michael. Oh, he's not there? He's not there. Do we lose him? Oh, he hasn't called in. Well, you just tell me that. I'll tell him to call in. Um, I'll tell him to call in now if he wants. If not, no problem. He has a couple stories about this. And one of them has to do with, again, Senator Shaheen, who, by the way, very respected, very effective U.S. Senator, senior senator, may run again this next time, former governor. But this is what she says about Musk on X, at Elon Musk, claiming that this guy would have been out of business but for the U.S. government bailing him out in SpaceX. In fact, Musk won a $1.6 billion NASA contract, which he delivered on, and has won many more since. Now, you know what the Democrats feel? They feel that Musk is ripping them off because he gets all these contracts. He's going in, he's cutting. He's just going to try and, nest his own, feather his own nest more. But Michael Graham, New Hampshire Journal. Good morning, Michael. Right. Because, yep. Right. Because, Michael, it's like Senator Warren and Mass or Schumer. To people like Senator Shaheen, and I mean this respectfully, and I'm trying to be very intellectual about this, and they are process politicians, political people. They've been in there a while, a long time. They like the system. They feel it's really good. They feel if you wanted to shake up the system and cut and do all these things, it doesn't need it. And they like politics. They really like things the way it is, and they just totally miss why Donald Trump resonates with more people is people are fed up with professional politicians at every level and they want change. And if a professional politician never delivers change, change comes from a change agent. That's what Trump is. That's what Musk is. And they're not going to like it, Michael, no matter what, no matter if Musk goes into the Defense Department and finds incredible wasteful spending. Like, remember, I don't know, Michael, must have been you were probably a kid in South Carolina. Someone the last time this was done, it's like in healthcare, they found like a wrench and how much the Pentagon was being charged for this wrench to repair a jet engine. And it was like $800 for a $28 wrench. If you put that example in front of the American people, do you think that's a waste of spending? Musk is going to be right 9 out of 10 times of the week. Well, it's interesting. I'm not saying you'll want to listen to it, but when Brad and I had Jim Messina on Friday, and he really is arguably the top Democrat strategist. If you think Barack Obama is still head of the Democrat Party, most people would say maybe his brand was hurt a little bit out there campaigning for Harris, but he's still number one fundraiser, number one person they call in the Democrat Party. Messina said it. He goes, the big question will be is when does his ideology wear thin with the American people? When do people stop? When do they not want to hear that illegal immigration is a problem, sanctuary cities are bad, make America great again? When does that ideology get old? And he goes, I'll tell you right now, it's probably not before the midterms. Um, right. It- yeah, it's tough. Right. I think you're right. Thank you, Michael. I hope you had a good one. I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael Graham. And one other thing I was going to say to show how some people don't get it is over the weekend. I'm not going to say who because I'm not. I was thinking about it, but um, former pretty well known media person in New Hampshire is on my page or through my page and was trashing Caroline Levitt. I mean, just like trashing Caroline Levitt, the press secretary for Donald Trump. And I get it to a point, but it's so mean the way they'll trash and criticize, calling her the worst export from New Hampshire. Ray Buckley, the chair of the Democrat Party, did this as well, saying basically, I'm paraphrasing in an X comment, you know, we rejected Trump and Levitt not once but twice. She's a terrible representation, basically, from the Granite State. She's a 27-year-old young mother from Atkinson, New Hampshire, who went to college here, played sports here, got involved in public policy, and is the youngest press secretary for a president of the United States in American history from little old New Hampshire. And I don't mind if you want to criticize Trump's policy or her for defending it, but to be mean and say condescending things because she has blonde hair, to say that she's from a rich family, this kind of mean bullying crap. The fact is, you can't admit it because you're not big enough and you're not magnanimous. But if she was a Democrat press secretary for Kamala Harris, if she won, she'd be the best export from New Hampshire that you've ever seen. Better than maple syrup, better than skiing, better than the fall foliage. But because she's working for Donald Trump, you can't even say it's pretty cool that this young person has excelled in doing so much on the biggest stage on earth when it comes to a, media press secretary. It's pretty pathetic. It just shows that you're a hater, not a thinker. It shows that you hate. Because if you can't, I'll be honest, if there was a young person from New Hampshire and Harris had won, and that person was the press secretary and he or she was 27, 26 years old, I'd say it's pretty cool. And the funny thing is, people who trash Caroline Levitt and make it personal, it shows you how mean people can be. I get it. It shows you how many jerks there are in social media. I get it. I mean, I deal with it. I don't care because I don't, I guess my skin is thick and I kind of laugh at ignorance. But the funny thing is, um, they're the same people that you just can't, you need to, even if someone disagrees with you politically, vehemently, and this is where this Trump thing is so weird. It is kind of like a derangement thing. If you dislike the guy that much and you can't get over the fact of you're disliking him and you can't have a rational discussion on why so many people voted for him, well, maybe you're not right all the time. And, just being mean because someone, is not saying what you want. And the funny thing, these people won't say it all when they trash Caroline Levitt. There's not many of them, but there's a number of vocal people in the state who think, she's just an embarrassment for New Hampshire. I'll tell you what an embarrassment was half of the Biden administration. I'll tell you what an embarrassment was. It was Joe Biden trying to get up there and do a press conference. I'll tell you what the embarrassment was. 4 years of watching them lie that Biden wasn't too old and too confused. And who did it? They talk about Caroline Levitt lying about USAID or foreign spending. You know who did it? The press secretary for Joe Biden. You talk about embarrassing. That was embarrassing. Lack of press conferences. Trump and Levitt have already had more press conferences in 3.5 weeks than Biden did in 4 years. And that's a fact. And Caroline Levitt is at the center of that, managing the White House press corps, managing the White House media at 27 years old. For the haters out there, let me ask you a question. What were you doing at 27 years old? Were you doing anything that impressive by 500,000 miles? I'm just curious. I doubt it. And the people that say she's stupid, I got news for you. I've met her. She's been on my show. She was a candidate. She was doing a lot of my show. She could dance circles around you, blindfolded with headphones on at 2 in the morning on Hampton Beach, and you wouldn't even know what hit you. Some commentary. When you're going to pick on someone, choose better. But stop being a hater. 603-228-2080. Back, Doug Tengden. We'll talk about steel tariffs next. Doug Tengden, our economic thinker out there, worldmarketadvisors.com. Easy to remember. Doug, good morning on this Monday. And if I was in a room or on an airplane, Air Force One with President Donald Trump, and he said, 3 minutes, tell me how you think I'm doing. You know what I'd say to him? Doug, what do you think? You know what I'd say to him? You want to hear? This is a minute. I'll do it in a minute with you. Mr. President, I think 70 or 80% of the people like the fact that you're doing what you promised. And I think just about everything you're doing, sanctuary cities, rounding up criminals who have broken into the country and convicted 20 crimes, deporting them, holding them, talking about some really good things, energy, but you did a lot of people voted for you because they thought you'd lower everyday prices for consumers. You got to be very careful on these tariffs because if you go a year or two into your presidency and the price of chicken, or let's not say chicken, the price of steak, the price of orange juice, the price of groceries, if that's not lower for the average people and they don't feel that they have more money in their pocket, everything you're doing will not go down as great in history as you think. So keep in mind the average person out there in their grocery bill. That's what I'd say. Because what is your take on the steel tariffs? I get it. Make America great. Build stuff here, buy stuff here. But a tariff war, my limited economic knowledge is even with Canada, it drives up everyday prices. I mean, Irving Oil will jack up prices and people, I'm saying it's across the board. So what do you think? If what I said was sound, that everyday prices are a real concern for people that have been dealing with inflation for 4 years, how much can he go down the road on this tariff stuff before people building a home, fixing a home, buying groceries are going to be not impressed? Yep. So what do you think? Tell us how it's going to go over the next 6 to 12 months in this economy. Right now the markets aren't reacting well. People do like what Trump's doing more than not, but President Trump, but I do worry about inflation because a lot of people voted for him were on the fence. They chose him because he could do a better job of the economy. See, that's good. Well, that's That's why I think Senator Warren and others are getting this wrong. Cutting federal waste in Washington is exactly what the voters want. I'm just worried that tariffs sound good on paper, but if they raise prices at all, people are going to feel that. That's a separate issue than cutting federal waste. Yeah. Yep. Yep. I agree. I agree. I agree. But I do know that if Kamala Harris had talked 8 weeks before the election about the price of groceries and said how unelectable Trump was and running around with Liz Cheney, she might have done better. And I think Donald Trump, in another few weeks, needs to come out in one of his press conferences and say, this is what we're doing to drive down everyday prices of consumers. But anyway, we got to run. Yeah. 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 Thanks, Doug. World Market Advisors. All right. Got a lot coming up. 10 o'clock hour next.